It's where I want to read the story as I've heard the story before, but not with the detail that it's the stories with Rav Osher Sasonkin. Again, I'm telling you stories with him. Showed you a picture of him. But he used to like the Menorah in 770. And he was this kind of Yid. The Rabbi says, "I'm Mesiras Nefesh Yid." A simple Jew, like maybe call him a simple Jew. I don't know, but that's it. Thank you. So let me read you the story that he relates in the Gulag. And it's a story, thank you. I'm going to close the door if you don't mind. The story of the 5th night of Hanukkah, which is today. I'm sorry, please bear with me. This is the last one he sent. Okay. During his time in a labor camp in Siberia, Russia, Rabbi met another Jewish prisoner, we've told stories about him, called Rav Nachman Roizman, Olav Shalom. This Nachman Roizman had grown up in a frum home, but left the path of Torah and mitzvahs as a young man, as many did, seduced by communism. We learned about his crime. It was a financial crime. He was charged of a factory and he was accused of taking money on the side. So during his time in the labor camp, the Boshe befriended him and Rav Nachman began keeping Torah mitzvahs. And his Pintel Yid, we're talking about, began to shine. Before Hanukkah arrived, the Boshe told Rav Nachman the story of the miracles of Hanukkah, how the Hashmonaim fought the Greeks with great Mesiras Nefesh, emerging victorious even though they were vastly outnumbered. After he finished the story, so this Osher says to Rav Osher asked Rav Nachman, sorry, maybe you could find some empty cans and we'll make a makeshift menorah. Rav Osher says to him, we need to get small cans so that the illegal menorah lighting in the barracks, which housed around 70 non-Jewish prisoners, would go as much as possible unnoticed. This Osher Reisman's response to the Boshe, you just told me that this great miracle happened to the Eden. We're going to honor the great miracle with small, used, dirty cans? He was shocked. Absolutely not. I will arrange a new and beautiful menorah, and that is how we will properly thank the Eibishter for what he did to our ancestors. Now, Boshe thinks to himself, Pasha to a simple Jew. When knew so little about Yiddishkeit because as a teen or even younger, it seems he already got caught up in communism as so many did. So he isn't ready to do the mitzvah in the most basic fashion. He wants to do it in the most beautiful way. Yuval says to Boshe, what about me? Like he was in awe of this, the Nachman. Okay, says the Boshe. Absolutely. Relieved to hear his words. The Boshe was certain they would have a beautiful menorah for Hanukkah that year, because he knew that once Rav Nachman made up his mind about something, nothing would get in his way. Indeed, day before Hanukkah, Rav Nachman came to the Boshe with a massive smile on his face, a proper menorah in one hand and a bottle of olive oil in the other. How he got that in the labor camp, only he knew. No, so the Boshe and Rav Nachman set up the menorah in a small washroom with a sink, which was on the side of the main barracks room, and lit the menorah every night without issue. In fact, many of the prisoners came to watch the two men make the brachas and light the candles. And the Boshe explained the meaning of Hanukkah to these curious non-Jewish prisoners. Everything went smoothly until the 5th night. And unexpectedly, an officer showed up to take a head count. Now, usually the head counts were only done after curfew, which was 10 p.m., to ensure all prisoners were in the barracks, and no one could understand the reason behind this change. It was especially odd because the prisoners were still allowed to walk around freely and leave their barracks. This is before 10. So even after the count, they still can walk around. So a head count served no real purpose, but it was a surprise head count. One of the prisoners tells Rabbi and this Reb Nachman, the officer is just pretending to be counting the prisoners, but he's really here for you, to catch you, and know that you'll be severely punished. And one of the prisoners warns the two fellas. Rabbi and Reb Nachman understood very well what the prisoner was saying, because they were actually committing a double offense. Number one, fire wasn't allowed even near the barracks, just for the fear that it would flare out of control and destroy the entire camp. It's all made of wood. Secondly, obviously, lighting a menorah is a religious act. It was absolutely forbidden. I mean, that's why Rabbi was sitting in the labor camp. So the prisoners, he just shows up, the officer now. And the prisoners all watch with bated breath to see what would happen next. One well-meaning prisoner whispers to Rabbi, throw it into the snow. He's making his way through the barracks. Rabbi says, no. The lights are holy, I will not extinguish them. Do what they want to me, I'm not putting out the flames. As the officer slowly approached them, close the door, please. The two Jews remain standing by the menorah. After much suspense, the officer reaches the washroom, looks at the menorah, and says, Piat, which means 5 in Russian. And they say, Piat. He looks at it, turns around, and walks out. End of story. Who was this officer? The officer was obviously a Jew. He's a high-ranking communist. He's an officer. And this is mamish the story here. He saw what Yidden with Mesiras Nefesh at Toikef of Yechidish Beneshama. What did he say here before? That the other Jews, they inspired the other Yidden. His Pintel Yid was burst into flame for that moment. Tonight's 5, in other words, the 5th night tonight. It's Hanukkah, the 5th night turns around and walks. Beautiful story. So when you go to Yechidish Benefesh, at least for a moment, there can be nothing can face this. All Klippa, all opposition just melts in the raw expression that there's an Eibishter in the purest way, as expressed by a Mesiras Nefesh that is pure, coming from the simple Yechidish Benefesh.